Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Marshall, and I have a blog called Dr. Julie's Fun Life. And in my life, I like to do fun things, and one of my favorite things to do is to read. So I have a lot of novels that I get and I read and I enjoy, and I love to tell you about them. My favorite genre is romantic fiction, which, by the way, is the most popular of all the genres by a wide margin. So that's kind of neat. At least you're in the majority if you like these. So I'm going to tell you about 5 different novels, and they'll have the little links below on how to get them. They're really great, and I just read them all recently in the last couple of weeks. So, okay, let's go with the first one. The first one is by a really fun author. Her name is Jenny Colgan, and she wrote this book called The Bookshop on the Corner. She has a whole series of books, but she's really, obviously a book lover when she talks. And this book is so cute. It's a wonderful story of a woman who lives in Scotland, and she has a job in the city, in a busy city in Scotland. And then the job as a librarian, she loses. Very sad. And so then all of a sudden she has no job, because of various budget cuts. And so what she decides to do is she moves to a sleepy village in the north of Scotland, and there she actually purchases a, like a kind of a van that she turns into a mobile bookshop. And and then there's the story of all the different people that she impacts because of her books. There's a story of some romance from several different people that she gets involved with. It's a lovely story. You can't really put it down. It's very touching. The style of Jenny Colgan is very, it's just, you really are drawn into the lives of the characters. So I'd really strongly recommend it. Jenny Colgan is her name. And the book is called The Bookshop on the Corner. So it's a wonderful novel. I really couldn't put it down. It was so much fun to read. So take a look at that. Okay, so my second book is really, it kind of reminds me of the book Lessons in Chemistry, which is, you probably remember, was a huge hit. This one's called Love on the Brain, and it's by Allie Hazelwood. And what's really interesting about this is I believe the author is actually a neuroscientist herself. And so she wrote this book, and what happens in the story is there's a character named B, who is a PhD, B Konigswasser, and she gets offered. She's a neuroscientist, and she gets involved and is asked to be on a NASA project as a neuroscientist. It sounds kind of heavy, technical, but there's of course a love interest because there's another neuro engineer there working on the project, but then there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of story and a lot of back and forth of the different characters and just kind of the nuances of this character and how she's quirky, but she's obviously very bright and darling, and how she has to learn how to assimilate into this, unfortunately, man's world, even with her STEM background. So it's a really very current kind of a novel, and it was very enjoyable to read. I did really care for the characters. There were some twists and turns that surprised me, so I liked it a lot. So I would really recommend, if you liked Lessons in Chemistry, then, which is not by this author, but if you did, it's a very similar type of story of these women involved in the science world. And I, as a physician, really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. So Love on the Brain. So I would highly recommend it by Allie Hazelwood. And she also wrote I think it was called The Love Hypothesis. So see what you think of that. New York Times. So my third book today that I'm going to talk about is it's more of a kind of a historical fiction novel, which I really enjoy. This was set in 1865, and it's called A Lady's Guide to Mischief and Mayhem by Amanda Collins. Kind of an interesting title. It sounds kind of Victorian. And it's a really interesting story of this character. She's a newspaper columnist named Lady Catherine Bascom, and she finds herself embroiled in a kind of a scandal because she is this columnist, and she speculates there's some murders happening in the area, and she speculates on who's causing it and has some really interesting insight into the story. But back in that day, there were no women detectives, and so she causes quite a bit of a stir by what she published. And then the main inspector, Andrew Eversham, was not too happy to have her involved in getting in his way. So it gets very complicated. There is a little bit of a love story in it, which is lovely, and it really demonstrates the changing perspective of the male inspector. And it just makes you feel, but teaches you a lot about, kind of the perspective that occurred during that time. And it teaches you also about just some aspects of the, the political events of the time, and just the position that, women were more, it wasn't that common for women to be in any kind of position of power in their job. And so she certainly turned the society a little bit on their head with her approach. So it's really a book that was interesting and was very, I think it's current. She has really kind of gripping dialogue. So you just keep on wanting to hear what this woman's going to say to these people and what kind of situation she's going to get into. So I really enjoyed it. She has several other books that she's written that I have read and enjoyed. One's called The Duke with Benefits, and another one, what was that other one? Oh, goodness. A Gentleman's Guide to Passion and Peril. That's another one, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But it was in one of the collections I just recently read. So I really enjoyed, I always like learning about history in the context of a love story, or where I can relate to the characters and I can remember more. So this was my fourth book. It's by Sophie Cousins. She really is delightful. And she's also written This Time Next Year. She's a New York Times bestselling author. I love her. She wrote this book, Is She Really Going Out with Him? It's a really cute tale. It's a story of a woman who's a divorce, had a difficult divorce, and has 2 kids. And then she works in, I think she's a columnist of some sort. And then what she decides, but in their office, there's they're trying to get some interesting articles, and they're sort of saying that she's not current. And so they want to put her on a dating service, or to actually do some of the social dating, and she's not interested. But she comes up with this kind of interesting idea that she will go on 7 dates, and they will all be selected by her children, which is really interesting to see who they come up with for her to date. I mean, it's really funny, and she just has to do it, and she does a great job in kind of learning unusual aspects of the various people that the kids find for her. And it just kind of tells a tale that really made me laugh. And so, and I think that it was a delightful, easy to read story, enjoyable. I would recommend it. And I think that you would have fun just learning about her. She just kind of has a really kind of enchanting way to write. And she makes you laugh. Oh my goodness, I certainly laughed when I read this one. So, Is She Really Going Out with Him by Sophie Cousins. Okay, this book, the 5th one I'm going to talk about, that's the last one of the day, is called The Vibrant Years. It's a novel by Sonali Dev. She's an Indian writer, and she is delightful to read. And this is pretty, although there's romance in the story for sure, there's a lot of interesting character development, and it's actually a story of 3 generations, of women, and how they are, how the social mores of the time impacted what they did for their jobs, and whether or not they let that information be told to all of society. And so you got the grandma, the mom, and the daughter, and they all are very different, but yet they're tied together because of family ties and because of traditions. And it's very moving in a really interesting way. And you care about, like the young daughter, the granddaughter helps everyone to get, kind of plugged into the social, various social aspects of, of social media. And then there's the daughter who's got her work challenges and romance challenges. And it's just very interwoven of a story. Probably the most interesting story is the story of the grandma, and what she did when she was young that no one knew about, and how that evolved, and how that it played into her life and impacted kind of the rest of the story. It was very difficult to put down. It was very good. So, sometimes Sonali Dev is a little slow when you first start her book, so be patient with that. But just give it a little bit of time, and you'll get hooked. So I really enjoy The Vibrant Years by Sonali Dev, and I love almost all of her books. I've really couldn't put down. So this is certainly one of those like that, and I would strongly recommend it. And it's actually Mindy Kaling, the actress, is very. She actually has supported a lot of authors, and this is one of the books that she endorses. So you should consider really reading The Vibrant Years. Okay, that's something I'd strongly recommend. Well, anyway, there you go. There's 5 great books, all of which were delightful. I would suggest any and all of them. And I read a lot, so I certainly would love you to enjoy these books. And so they'll all be listed down below in the description box. And I have a blog, as I said, Dr. Julie's Fun Life. Please follow me there. And if you like this kind of a format, this video format on YouTube, which is where you are right now, do me a favor and subscribe to me down below. Of course, it's free. And then please tell any of your friends. That would really help me. So just in case I didn't mention, I'm a retired dermatologist, and I started this, my blog and my YouTube channel a few years ago when I retired. And I really have so many things that I'm interested in. That's why it's called Dr. Julie's Fun Life. And my goal is to actually help everyone else to have fun with the things that I recommend. So they could be fashion ideas for women over 50, because I'm actually 68, or it could be family-related recipes and tablescapes and activities. I think I even just did one on home goods. I just went on a home goods run, so take a look at that. So these are all just things that I like to do and I like to share, and to make it interesting, hopefully for you. And it is certainly interesting for me. I've certainly learned a lot in having this. So if this interests you, please follow me for more. And thank you very much. I know you have lots of other things you could be doing with your time, so I appreciate that today you decided to do this. Thanks.